Hello everyone, I am Sayuj Deshpande, the Mechanical Alumni Secretary. I would like to welcome everyone to the highly anticipated event, the CFA Talk, which is an interactive session with our illustrious alumnus, Mr. Aakash Patel, who will share his life experiences, indispensable tips, and plan of action to crack all three levels of one of the most coveted exams in the world, the Chartered Financial Analyst Examination, also known as the CFA exam. Participating among 250,000 candidates globally and making us proud, he is here to share the experiences that enabled him to have an edge over every other aspirant in CFA. I would like to congratulate and welcome our dignitary and thank him for agreeing to this session to guide the CFA aspirants. So, a few things about Mr. Akash. He graduated in the year 2016 with a BTech in mechanical engineering and has cleared all three levels of the CFA exam. From his time as the marketing executive at IIT Racing, intern at Edelweiss Financial Services and Deloitte India, to working as an associate at Deutsche Bank and now as an investment associate at Anacap Financial Partners, Mr. Akash has always strived for excellence. We hope that the audience can make the most of this interaction. So please note that we have disabled the mics of the attendees for now to avoid disturbance, but you can put your questions in the chat box and we will unmute you after the particular section is completed. Also, we will be taking more audience questions at the end. So I will hand it over to Ayush now, who will be going through the questions with our esteemed guest.
Okay, so hello everyone. I am Ayush Tarve, Department Alumni Secretary for Physics. So we'll be starting with the questions now. So to begin with, Akash, can you tell us about your journey? When did you start preparing for CFA and what was your motivation?
Hey everyone, and thanks for the warm welcome. I think that's a first good question to start with. So I'll just give a little bit of my background, at least what I've done since I joined, Insti. So during my first year itself, I had some idea that, in mechanical engineering, I'm not going to create something new or just not gonna solve some big problem. So while it was fine to get whatever basic CGs, apart from it, I wasn't much interested, and started wondering how it would be, say, if a lot of people do MBA, but what's the purpose of doing an MBA? What if you can get the bit of, tailor kind of before that? So I went for the minor in management from third semester onwards, and since then I started developing a bit more interest about finance. So even as you would know, like both of my interns are also in the similar field, so that also gave me like good exposure. And then along with the internship, I heard about the CFA. I think it was second or third year when people had just started giving the CFA exam. Before that, it was not that popular. I would say a lot more people know about it now compared to 5 years back. So I thought about the curriculum, and then it seemed quite interesting to me, to be honest. So everyone may have the different motivations to do it, but in terms of the basic exposure, it's simply an introduction, the first level. It's nothing more than that. It just tells you about different products. And of course, if you can get to do some internship, which is also related in finance or risk analytics or business development, then it provides you a bit more glimpse around the real world of, whatever happens in the exam itself. So after my second year intern at Edelweiss, I went for the CFA after 6 semesters. So that's the earliest that you can apply. If the rules have not changed, I'm not sure if they've changed the rules now, but that's the first time you can apply. So I went for it. Very clear motivation, right? I was interested in finance, wanted to focus for the finance forms during the placement. So what best time before 7 semesters, just to show keen interest, I would say, so that, it gives a point to the recruiters and others. It tells other person that, okay, this guy is interested in finance. And of course, things like minor in management, those add cherry on the top, because generally a lot of people go for these firms, and I'm not sure even how many firms are coming this day for the internship for the pure finance role. So a lot of firm comes, for example, GS, but they have very little to do with finance. It's purely related with the quant aspect of the finance side. So it's much more mathematics and coding related skills. So yeah, I decided to give the level one. It's I'm interested. Luckily, I got job at Deutsche Bank from the placement. So during the summer break, there was nothing else to do, and my motivation for finance was still quite up before joining the job. So I went for the L2. So by the time I had cleared college, I had also completed like 2 levels of CFA. So that was a very, I would say, very good time to do it for a couple of reasons. Firstly, you have lot of plenty time in the college life compared to the job. Doesn't matter which kind of a job you do, but it takes up what 10, 12 hours of day compared to 3 hours of lectures. So it's a very good time to be utilized. Now people can do CFA for different reasons, right? So firstly, I may be covering some other questions, but just to give you background along with my thought process. So people may do finance for different aspects. Some are very keen, they have interest, they follow the subject, and it provides them a little bit more information and across the product, right? So if you are generally reading from the newspaper or articles or wherever, you would capture 1 or 2 points, but not the complete aspect of it. And it goes a bit theoretical as well. I think some people don't prefer it, but in terms of providing basic concepts, it is quite nice. Just for the learning aspect. And even say you are not sure whether you want to do it or not, then I would say it's much better to, or at least show interest in some of the fields that you want to try out before actually joining the job. Because once you join the job, people can play around. It's not a linear path, but generally it's not that you can try 5 different things, right? Which you can do on the college during the college time. So that would be my advice for it. And then yeah, I joined the Deutsche in first year. I paid the fees, but because of job, I didn't get any time. So I was like, anyways, job is going fine. Let's ditch it. Then I was getting a little bit irritated that I have 2 levels completed, just need to clear third one. So might as well just do it and get it over with. So that I did in the second year of my job. So that was 2018. Yeah, after that, I can apply for the charter now, but to be honest, depends, it doesn't add that much value after a certain point, because I already have like 4 or 5 years of work experience and I can get it anytime, right? So just signing a form. But just to answer one of the other questions, but at different point in time, who put me on this path, then I would say the CFA exam, right? Because it showed the recruiters also that this guy is interested, and secondly also gave me flavor and basic theories of the bootcamp. And yeah, at least when it comes to the Deutsche, what they do, because most of the people come from engineering, they have a kind of a bootcamp, but it's very thinly squeezed. So you don't get to learn things that well. But it's pretty much the same thing, but better to call in CFA. Yeah.
Well, that was quite a journey, and I'm sure many would be uh, quite motivated for this. So, can you just give us a brief idea about the syllabus and key topics like one should look up before preparing for different levels?
So I would say there's nothing specific about it, and to be very frank, compared to JE, it's not difficult. It is very fairly straightforward. You just got to read book calmly and just understand what it says. So just like again, while everyone was preparing for JE, we used to focus on the fundamentals, and then things would go into 5 different layers. Here things stop at second or third place. So it's very simple curriculum. I think the key would be to just go through the subject, and some people may find difficulty in, for example, equities, other may find some difficulty in real estate. And to be honest, it's since been 3 years, so I don't remember much of the curriculum now. Yeah.
Okay, okay, that was informative, very informative. Can you tell us about some job opportunities after passing level one exam? Like if a person just passes level one, what opportunities does he get?
So just to give you a bit more wider background, Actually, CFA doesn't go alone, right, in your CV. It's not like that if you're CFA, just forget about everything else, we will give you a job. Those things are not there in India. In US, especially CFAs, once you go through all three levels, in the third level, it's about portfolio management and wealth management. So just generally in the Western countries, because they have wealth more, like even the pension funds, right? So people pension also goes into the saving. So there's a lot of capital available. There are this different kind of a CFA. So people just get job simply based on CFA, nothing else. But in India, situation is a bit different. I haven't seen anyone who has CFA alone. So most of the people would either have like kind of a CA or say BCom background, and of course in our terms it would be like engineers with CFA. So it shows that yeah, you can do quant, you are fine with logic, but now you also know basics of finance. So yeah, I think what was the exact question? In terms of job opportunities, right?
Job opportunities,
Yeah. So because people do it different times, so even if say you are not that keen, if you then looking for something in finance, then it's a very good way to show, right? Because when you tell people that, oh, I love finance, I like to follow economics, XYZ, XYZ, but there's nothing on your CV that can, kind of reflect it. So that is where the CFA comes in very handy. Of course, now what some people may do is that they give CFA one, get a good job, and I know some of these people, because once you are like already went into the field, it doesn't make much a difference, because people already know just simply by the fact that okay, you are working for this firm at this role, what you would be doing. So people get that, and of course IIT always helps. So people just see okay, an engineer from IIT working in a finance firm is looking for a next job. So people also drop it and also remove from the CFA, because it also looks weird that it's been 7 years that you gave CFA level 1 and then you're done nothing. So after a point, it becomes a depreciating thing.
That's sure. So, like, if after one clears level 1 and he wishes to go for level 2, then what is the best time? Like, as you said that you completed before like by the time you graduated, you finished 2 levels. But for
Yeah,
like,
so
what are the other times one can do
yeah,
for
so
level
right,
2?
exactly. What happened with me is like when I went for level 3, just because there was so much to do on the job, and there's no real motivation afterwards, right? Okay, what else would you get from the next level 3? Nothing much, to be honest. Just that that thing is completed now. Uh, so lot of what happens is that because you don't have much time and importance decreases, so people drop it out after the first level or even second level. I know some of the people who have dropped out after second level because there's no point. So it's better, I would say, if you start early, because it will just give you different opportunities. So essentially, after L1, you should have some idea whether you know anything about finance. Do you like anything about this world or not? If you like it, then it's always better to complete L2 and L3 as earlier as possible.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so the next is like there is a benchmark of 300 hours of preparation for just level 1 exam, and for the next levels, it is subsequently higher. So, like, you think one should keep in mind before preparing?
Yeah, I think it's again not that much. It's just that you need to go through all the books. At least what I used to do was that there are LOS, right? Different some learning outcome statements, things like that. So I used to complete one each day. Some day it may be a bit longer, some day it may be a little bit quicker if the chapter is smaller, right? So that was my method to just prepare. And I don't think there are more than 35 LOS, right? So even if I talk about the job time, you can just complete one LOS a day, and in month's time you would be fine. But it's just that you need to understand what is happening, not just go through the question. Once you understand, again, it's not that difficult.
Okay, so understanding is the key, not the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, apart from the exam and grading pattern, like, what are the main differences in level 2, level 1, level 2, and level 3 exams? Like, does anyone needs to change his preparation strategy for these, like, for these
Uh,
differences?
so just to answer your question, no, I don't think there's any need to change the strategy. Also depends upon the time that you have. So in terms of what they try to cover is in L1, they have just an introduction of all different things like equity, fixed income, options, futures, right? So they will talk about all of these things, but they will just talk about it. No, not go into any deeper. In L2, they are going bit deeper in terms of quant and being bit more numerical. But again, compared to JEE, it's not very difficult math. But yeah, they go into good detail of each of the different, say, financial instrument, provide starts you think about the risk return and other stuff. Level 3, it's now once you now have introduction and you know the details, how do you bring it all in? So in terms of the portfolio management, which is the main, say, objective or the qualification of CFA. So it gets a bit more theoretical because now you are looking at a bit more subjectively. There's no like fixed answer why 21, why 27. It's more like, okay, feels like 25. So it's a bit more subjective when it comes to the portfolio arrangement. Of course, there are also two strategies, right? One is the quant based, which is 100% mathematical, but then there's also qualitative type of investments where it gets subjective.
Okay, so like, can you tell us about the early bird application and like how can we increase our chances to get a scholarship under that?
Uh, Unfortunately, I don't have any idea about it because when I came to know about this, it was already too late. Then I hadn't bothered about it. As I mentioned, right? So I'll tell you before I set for the placements in the previous year, there were I would say some 5-7 guys who had done the CFA after the 6th sem. In my batch, that 7 number became to something like 15 or so. Then it just exploded like 40, 50 people. Everyone has CFA on their CV now. I'm not sure whether the trend has reversed, but that was something I'd observed in subsequent 2 years. Like everyone does CFA. So of course now the value starts decreasing a little bit just from the internship point of view. So you also need to have some other things, and a bit of CG as well to show that okay, you even if you don't like the job, so this is the purpose. Even if you don't like the job, you can do the work. That is what comes out from your CG. So even if you don't like civil, mechanical, whatever, just maintain decent CG so that people would look at your CV essentially. That's the key.
Okay, so like does the department we are currently majoring in like in our BTech program, like does it affect any opportunities in the financial sector? Like if
No,
someone is interested in the field, okay, yeah,
no,
please
I,
continue.
I would say no. I would say no. Because from finance perspective, it doesn't change. Say in other spaces where people go for CS first, elect, then mechanical, whatever the grading is, it doesn't matter into the finance side as long as you understand the concept. And again, as I mentioned, right, the real concepts are compared to GE are very simple. Uh, so if you get them, it's not difficult, and people don't necessarily look at the department. What they'll look after is just other things, right? What things you have done, what kind of experience you have, whether you say now again once you write the CFL1, then people would expect you to answer some of the questions. So it's also you have to be prepared for that, and if you defend well, then your chances increases. But department doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. So like it's equal
Yeah,
for
but
all then.
unless you are in top 10, yeah, those guys would have different respect. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So like what like are there any some specific tips you would like to give to the students who are going to appear for CFA in coming year, that is in 2022?
No, nothing much, to be honest. I think there's plenty of time, right? Even if you don't have job and if you're in the hostel life and nothing much going on, you can wrap up everything in. So again, during job time, I spent 1 month time, but like more like say 2 hours a day. But during college time, I was spending 4 hours. At that time, I was also watching the videos first. I got it from DC++, so I was watching video as well because there was nothing much to do. But it helped me understand the concepts better.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but so if you have time, make a good use of it. And just if you get basic understanding from the book itself, no need to go through videos.
Okay. So the curriculum is CFA is quite vast, quite vast. Like like if we consider all the three levels. So like you told us about your preparation. So like it's not necessary that like some people may be having some other issues and all. So how
So
do you
yeah,
think?
in
Yeah.
terms of that, I think again just referring to the job time and even college life, you would know that some of the days are very busy, hectic, and some would be light. So if there was a topic which I don't like it very much, then I used to focus on it when I'm having a light day, so I can give it a bit more time because it's a bit more pain to go through that topic. And something if you like very easily, even if you have like had a little bit long day, still not that challenging to complete it. So I would say just cater around that. And again, one good thing about it is that they have it kind of equally split entire curriculum in this 30-35 LOS. So it's not like long, 5 chapter.
Yeah.
So it's good breaks.
Okay, so that's a pretty nice plan. So we'll go ahead and like if like is do you think CFA is really worth it if someone doesn't necessarily want to pursue finance? Like what are the major takeaways from this program? And especially like since the fees of CFA is quite high and that's a major concern of some students.
Uh, Yeah, so first, if people don't want to go into the finance, then I would say not much, to be honest. Like, it's fine. If you say go on becoming something very senior management position, then you would have gone through the steps or MBA or something like that, which will teach you the basic finance concepts. So it's not that great and not necessary. And even if you are applying for those kind of a jobs, again, CFA doesn't really help much. I'm talking about say 2, 3, 4 years after the experience, right? So it doesn't matter. No one is going to come and hire for senior management in the early years. But generally, even in the VCs, people that go to the startups, they don't have like finance, CFA necessarily.
Okay, so it's not very
And
necessary then.
yeah, regarding the second question about the fees, uh, to be honest, it depends how you look. So if you are looking in terms of the investment for either getting a better job or just getting a job, right? First of all, and even if you're just looking for just to understand whether you like it or not, then 80,000 bucks, that's the amount I think that you have to pay for L1, right? 80, 90,000 bucks. Because after the L1, if you don't like it, you can always drop it for the third category folks. So 80, 100, 80,000, 1 lakh is not very big amount if you look compared to the future income potential. Everyone is going to do nice. It's very essential to make use of good time. So if you already are keen, then it's much better that you directly go into the finance side rather than going to the core jobs, then do CFA. That also happens. That's what I'm saying. But if you already know, then it's easier, right? So in that sense, it's not a big cost. But of course, everyone's situation is quite different at home. So I would say it depends on you guys, right? It's not definitely not end of the world, nothing like that. IIT Tech carries you forward way higher. But of course, it teaches you stuff, right? So if you can somehow then really interested, like really interested, then go through the stuff, even if you don't apply for the exam and don't get the certificate. But if you are in position to spend it, then might as well get the certificate. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so like what is the value and recognition of CFA in India? Like according to you, how is it going to change in the future?
It's good. So if you actually CFA is meant for the people who are already in kind of a commerce field, right? So if you've done CA, BCom, then you do CFA, then it definitely adds tremendous value to your profile. But when you and like very frankly, right, when you go from the IIT, it gives you a name. So CFA is not CFA doesn't CF compared to CA and normal BCom courses, CFA level 2, those people find it very difficult because of the quant, which is not that much when you compare to the engineering. So generally, people have very good idea in terms of a CFA, and there are no like direct opportunities. So what my point is that whatever you get on the standalone basis of CFA would be lower than say whatever you get just based on IIT compared to working in the startup, right? Tech, whatever business. development, operational management, all of those would earn you better money compared to just CFA.
Okay, so like, what is the major role of CFA in any organization?
Again, so there's not much department in any company. As I mentioned, it's more to do with the portfolio management. So generally, this portfolio management and wealth investment firms will be just separate firms, right? So whatever the corporations are, whenever they collect their pension money they have to keep it and pay whenever the employees retire, right? So they go and invest this money to give this money to the portfolio management. So as a CFA, you would be working in a separate firm, like either owning. So in that sense, it's similar to CA. Just purely, that's the ideal goal of the CFA. In India, there are not many such say opportunities. Generally, market is not that developed. So what kind of roles you would get is just more like into the investment banking or core aspect of finance, right? So I work with the real estate for the real estate. I'm not sure whether this is the now good time to cover or we can cover at the end about this. I just wanted to give you a bit more idea about my job.
Yeah. Like, you can tell us about your day-to-day work. Like, you work as an investment associate, right?
Yeah, so even before the day-to-day, I'll just give you this idea about what we do, right? And day-to-day looks a bit different compared to that. So what we do is, I'm a part of a Europe firm, like which had again done the similar thing, right? So they went out in the market, they told the people like the pension funds and other government sovereign bonds and funds that we can we can invest your money and give you good returns essentially. So far we have raised like 6 billion euros in last 15 years. So that's what our current AUM is. But then if you compare to the big guys, right, the Blackstones and the KKRs, so all of those guys have like 600, 700 billion dollar AUM. I think there are only like what 10, 12 countries whose GDP is higher than that money. So what these people can do is just invest money somewhere and they can run the country financially. But of course they invest in the US and the big countries, so in that sense they don't have that much direct impact in the GDP. But those are massive, right? So compared to those firms, mine is like 100. But still there are only what 45, 50 investment team entirely. So you still get to manage decent amount of capital. And what we do essentially is that we raise this money, but we tell them that we are not going to give you back for next 7, 8 years. So it's a long-term investment for you because we focus on real estate market generally in India. So it's not like share, right, that you buy today and exit in the evening. So once you go into the real estate, it's a long 3, 4, 5 year plan and investment and projections. So it locks up your money. So that is something where CFA skills comes out very useful. So in last third level, they talk about lot of biases when you are doing investment. There are lot of subconscious and biases which impacts your decision. So in that sense, CFA comes very helpful, right? There's not much value addition for me to get the CFA charter, but I still find the CFA level 3 stuff useful when especially my role is changing or there's something new I have to do. So in that sense, the main aspect of CFA is to sit outside the firms. Of course, then you can always go and apply as a CFA into that firm for the job, right? But it would be just different firm, not like each company would have their own CFA. Some people also do that. Some companies are such large, then they also have like in-house CFA and an investment team. But yeah, not the typical companies.
Okay, so like that's quite interesting job. So like about 42% people here like are still like have still not decided which field they wish to take. So like what would you like to tell them about the finance field?
So I think generally for the basics, for me it was minor in management, right, which provided me basic intro and the understanding about what the field is, or just gave me glimpse what it could be. Uh, in order to know whether you like anything, not just finance, the best way is to go out and try some things, learn about it. Generally, exams help because then there's a deadline, so you can't procrastinate. You have to prepare for the exam, so it pushes you in that way, right? So the best way is to know. So now you have not decided. Then the real question, because you have plenty of amount of time, so time is not a constraint. Other constraint is money. That you would know your situation, to be honest, how much value or interest you have versus what's the situation. If you can afford it, again, in just after passing in 2 3 years, you would be earning quite handsome money compared to the CFA fees, right? So it's just like an investment rather than, I would say, expense. If you can afford it and not sure, always best to go for it and then know through the process whether you actually like finance or not.
Okay, so like, that's a good takeaway. So like just as a ending question, like can you tell us about your day-to-day work? Like on a daily basis, what is the
Yeah.
general thing you do?
So right. So I'll just now I mentioned that we do the real estate investment for 3 to 5 years. So I'll just walk you through one of the deal cycle, how the deal starts, how what goes on, and how do we end, and why does it take quite a long time to complete it. Um, so what happens is that you and just a bit more background. Right now there are only 3 members in the NACAP India team, and including myself. So other two are, they are like quite senior. They have like 15, 17 years of more experience compared to me. So, and it's very small team, right? Just 3 of us, nothing else in entire India. So it puts you right there into the market. So you would be connected, of course, other two guys, because they have already been into the industry for quite a long time. Their reach and network would be very massive. And but even just being on the LinkedIn, people will come and find you. Okay, I have this opportunity to discuss. And there are some real estate advisors, like company which just do the valuation for the client. They also they also have an arm which looks after the market. So from this kind of different sources, we get the proposals, just like basic brief about what is the property, where it is located, how much money they are seeking from us, and what kind of protection and future value is expected, cash flow is expected, what kind of expenses are expected. So just very high level information. Based on that, we would be getting, say, what, 30 proposals, out of which we would maybe find 5 something which is kind of interesting, 5 to 7. Then actually start working on it, then ask for a bit more follow-up question, additional details. So in the first phase, and then at the same time in a given day, there would be multiple things which can going on, right? So there will be a couple of deals which would be in the initial stage, then a couple of deals where we have already started progressing. So we need to just ask for the various kind of data previous. So I'll take the example. We look at some of the residential apartments where the situation is that they have completed 60-70% of the building, 40% building they have already sold, so you can sell even before construction, but of course the value would be a bit lower compared to completed apartment. So that's the incentive for people to buy it a bit early. If someone is planning after 2 3 years and they are getting 15-20% discount or 10 to 20% discount, it's a quite big number for anyone, right? Mumbai, not just Mumbai, generally houses are expensive in India. So, and Mumbai, of course, they are super expensive. So what happens is that they've completed 70%, they already have 40% pre-sales, but they need to finish the project to realize the remaining cash flow, because you can't just sell and collect 100% upfront, right? So they would be just paying something like 20% also just as a token money. So in order to get your remaining 80, you need to complete the project. But all these real estate developers are in such a bad position, they don't have the working capital. Their property value is quite lot more. There's a tremendous value. But again, because it's into the real estate, you can't just liquidate it tomorrow. So what they need, and especially because of COVID and everything, market has gone down. Like there's definitely questions about, for example, shopping malls, theaters, even offices. So value has slightly, as in risk is perceived to be higher. rather than value. I would say risk is perceived to be higher. So what happens is that they come to us that can you bridge me this money, and just to construct 30%, they just need something like 15% of the sales, something like that. So they will come to us and ask for the debt, and then we will look at the numbers. Okay, how much real equity is left for him even after I get paid out. So we would run numbers. Once we have the thesis finalized, then what we would do is we would hire different agencies. For example, EY. Then there are a couple of real estate guys, CBRE, in one or two places, lawyers, to get a bit more idea about the title document, for example, right? If someone is coming to sell to you, you need to check that property is indeed his. So those kind of a basic things. Then we would initiate the DD. Once things looks fine, proper, then we go to our committee, because it's just like the internal process, right? So once we have like three of us have completed our thesis, we would go to our committee which sits out of London. Let me know if I'm getting too technical and
Yeah, a bit less technical, like
yeah,
not too
sure.
much.
Sure. So essentially, we go to the approval process, right? So there are different stages, and it doesn't end there. After that, you would be after that you would be following up for the final negotiation. So at any point in given time, different things will go on. So for example, in this beginning of this year, we didn't have any live deals, nothing. So we were just doing the pipeline building. So we were speaking with people, trying to see what kind of opportunities are available. Then after that 1 or 2 months, once we had a couple of opportunities, then day-to-day work shifted more towards getting the information, running the numbers, analyzing the proposal. And again, it's just three of us, and we actually go to office every day. So it's very good to discuss among ourselves what is the situation and how should we go about it. Then after completing the DD, just last 2 months were pretty heavy into finalizing the thesis. So at the same time, we also raised debt to fund some of the investments. So I would also be speaking with lenders. So in a given day, there will be like multiple things which will go around. But generally, the deal cycle is like 3 months if it goes from start to end. So it's a good long cycle. And yeah, after a point, of course, in every 6 months, things would just get repeated. But from day to day, it changes, it evolves a bit. So yeah, I would say the cycle is more like a 3 month cycle, after which I would be doing again exactly the same thing.
That sounds quite occupying, but yet interesting. So now we'll go ahead with the audience questions. Whoever has a doubt, please raise your hand and we will unmute you. Like, even if you have put your question in the chat, I would encourage you to raise your hand and ask the same question. So like we'll start with the audience question now. Yeah, Omkar. Omkar, you can speak. You can unmute and speak now. I guess he's having some trouble in mic. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah. Ayush.
So like Omkar has asked in the chat, like will having a CFA certificate be of any use in joining a firm, like in promotions, better opportunities, etc.
No, definitely, right? Especially in the early years. As I mentioned, if you see, because in the early years, what you are trying to do is that you have qualification in whatever in the engineering side of the stream, right? You don't necessarily have the understanding of finance world. So if you are really, even within the finance firm, there are different roles, just like the CFA. So in the CFA LOS, they cover different things, right? So in any like bank for example, Deutsche Bank, they would have everything running and different people would be looking at each of the different verticals. So, and it definitely helps there because even if what happens is that after joining the job, you would be spending all of your time into the one stream only, like one of the particular, either, for example, for me, it's more like a real estate. Someone else may be looking at something else, say derivatives or options. Some may be looking at equity. So you would major that bit, but you wouldn't have much idea about the other stuff. But because of doing the CF and just going through the process, rather than I would say certificate only, just because of the process, you also know different things. So when you are interacting with different people, you get to learn more about the market, and everything is linked, right? So it's not like equity market goes independent of real estate. Of course, there is a maybe less correlation or whatever, but everything has impact on each other. So it's always good to have that kind of a knowledge. So in initial year, I would say the certificate is more helpful, and also the knowledge as well, because you are just changing the stream. So it helps nicely to have some background in each of the things. So words are not alien to you. Once you are into the finance job after like having more experience, then there's not much value of certificate. But people do mention it, right? This is one thing. So it gives you a small plus. Yeah, he has done CFA. Good. That way. But he wouldn't be like, wow, he's CFA, let me just hire him. It wouldn't be that in the after say 5-7 years of job.
So I hope Omka your question is answered. So now we'll like Anish Sharan, please ask his question.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask whether is there any benefits for doing CFA before the sixth semester, before your penultimate year?
I would say, at least when it comes to this kind of things, I look more side as a downside, because upside you don't know, or the benefits you don't know that much in advance, right? You don't know which forms you are going to get into the internship, whether you are going to like the finance really or not. Even people's opinion change after joining a job, because it gets a bit hectic, whatever, you don't like some stuff, XYZ reason. Right, so I look at more as a downside, because it's very difficult to really think about the upside. So downside, what is the downside? There are two constraints. One is that you need to give some time, and the second thing is money. As I mentioned, for money, it's each one's situation. They can determine how well they can fit it. But if that's fine, and I hope for decent for population, it would be fine. So then I think you have a lot of time in the college to do multiple things, not just CFA. It's not that hectic. So better to
Okay.
do earlier. I think better to do earlier. Yeah, nothing else.
And how much time do you have to give to CFA prep, like in number of hours or
I
months?
think, yeah, I would say like what 3 hours they mentioned that's plenty enough time. Of course, whenever you are going through the process, you are just understanding the concepts, right, and what it's trying to say. Then 3 hours should be 3 hours should be sufficient. I think I spent more time in L1 than my L3, because right, I had plenty of time in college, nothing much to do, learning new things. So I was just going through long, easy process of watching videos and then reading about it.
So I hope your question is answered. So there's a question in the chat. Does technical analysis of financial markets and trading skills help a lot?
Oh, so I'm not much into that field, but I can certainly tell you one thing. It's a very different strategies that people obtain, right? So in the market, there are people who are just running purely on the technical financials. Of course, with the given the AI ML stuff, the technical analysis evolved and is reaching the AI ML. So you will need to know good amount of maths and coding. So this is where CFA is not that relevant. It definitely covers, I think there was one portion on technical analysis, but it's quite small and again just provides the overview. You can't actually, because you have to run some numbers, do the correlation, then understand things. So all of those things are not covered in CFA. For the trading, yeah, if you're again doing that kind of strategy, then you need to know. But if you're doing say some kind of other strategy when people invest in VCs, right? So they don't have to know anything. Or even for example in trading, when people look at the big companies, blue chips, they don't really need to do the technical analysis. They know that I'm gonna buy Nifty 50.
Okay, so I hope that question is answered. So Purvang Sharma is asking in the chat like which books to refer for preparation.
I had referred to Swasher only, like for all three exams. And even the videos I was referring to, somehow I'd find the Swasher's recording on the DC++. So nothing else. I didn't go through the CFA official book, not even a chapter. So I think Swasher, again, as I mentioned, right, the course is not that difficult. It's just like spending a couple of hours of time and go for it if you like it. If you don't, then again there were a lot of people, and one of my friend who was in chemical, he didn't do CFA. He got Deutsche during the internship itself. So and during the internship he got the PPO. So there was no need for him to do the CFA. He was not that, like, he liked finance, but not that keen. He joined Deutsche, worked there for 2 years. Then he went and worked for another investment banking firm for 2 years. Then he went to IMA, and now he's working for McKinsey. So I think I haven't done just one, but yeah, whatever. Now he's working for McKinsey, right? He has not given any CFA level. I don't think if both of us are applying somewhere, people would give much credit to my CFA now because it's been already so long. So even if you don't, then it's fine.
Okay, so we'll go to the next question. Like, are there any other exams or courses which are equivalent to CFA?
No, I would say there's another one, CPN, FRM, but FRM is again just more about the risk and modeling, not the investments. So you don't look at the investment as in the future projections and understand the thesis, right? Let's say if you're getting 15% return, where is that return coming from? So you don't do that kind of a stuff in risk management. It's more like for the banks to say you have given out granular loans to tens of thousands of people. Now, how do you know what are the chances of defaulting them? What probability? So those are the places where FRM would be useful, but it will restrict you to that particular vertical compared to CFA, which is much wider. And I think the exam is also like only 2 exams compared to CFA, which is like 2 exams in every one level. So just 2 against 6. Yeah, not exactly nothing else. Yeah.
Yes, so I hope your question is answered. So there's another question in the chat. Like, what's the best time to prepare and attempt CFA level 1?
So I would say again during the college you have a lot of time, right? And if the exam is in May, June, you are not going to get real motivated before Feb. So I would say March, April for the college. Otherwise, during the job, you would know what's your schedule like, how much time you get repeatedly on day. So my schedule varies a bit, right? Day to day time. Because when we were in the initial stages where we were just gathering the new proposals, after 5, 6, 6, 7 p.m., no one else is in the office and there's nothing much to do at our end, no numbers to run, no other analysis to do. So we go home like it's 9 hours. But during the last stages of DD, it can go up to 14, 15 hours for like a month every day. So it can be hectic as well. And that time it will be difficult to do CFA, right? So in case you are interested, then better to do earlier.
Okay, so I hope Prakti your question is answered. So just one more question, like we got in the Google form. What would be your assessment of the skill set needed for success in this field? Like, please talk about hard and soft in terms of hard and soft skills.
So in terms of the hard skills, one thing is like the basic understanding of logic and quantitative side of it, right? Which everyone does. Just compared to again coming from a strong technical engineering background, that hard skill is taken care of. The second biggest skill I would say is again understanding the finance itself, right? So that is where CFA comes out to be. If you are from BCom background, CA background, or even if you have done MBA, then there's not many things which CFA adds. But when you are coming from the engineering background, it adds everything. Let's say if you don't have an internship, nothing else, then it definitely adds a lot of hard skills in that sense. In this second, on the soft skill side, yes, communication is important. But you also get to learn over the time, right? So I wouldn't say it's that. Then you'll have to compensate through the hard skills. So say if you are lacking, of course, a basic level of communication skills are must. If you can't communicate, then how would you explain whatever you are doing, right? So that basic level of communication is needed, but then you can always evolve. But at the same time, you need to compensate compared to against the hard skills, because if anyone has the option, they will always go for someone who has both, right? So where is the value add or advantage? Apart from it, I would say again it's more like just after learning and going through the process. So through any jobs you would get different kind of experience, which will build your different kind of skills in terms of how to manage the time, how to manage people, and everyone in every different job has a different element of those kind of interactions. So it's a different skill set that you develop. But initially, I would say these two, three things are fine as long as you follow basic logic, understanding. Second, uh, knowledge about finance, and I would not call it necessary skill, but more like a knowledge. So if you are applying for any finance or any related firms, and let's say if you don't have anything else, which is also fine, but if you have good CG or some other things, sports things or whatever, something else, right? Then you feel that your CG is good and you want to talk about finance, then have some knowledge about it. It sounds very, plain. It becomes very plain and simple to the other person in case you tell them that okay, you are very interested about finance, love economics, but they ask you two three major things about them and you don't know anything, as simple as that. Okay, what is currently going on in the Indian ecosystem, market, right? And because you are doing that as a job, the other person would be much more close to it. So that is also kind of a knowledge view which you would need for the initial time. Yeah.
So, okay, I hope your question is answered. So, there's one more question in the chat asked by Karan. What is the best source of preparation? Like, I guess he means in terms of books or something.
Sweatshirt, right? Sweatshirt. I prepped from the sweatshirt. I found them neat and comprehensive. So yeah, I think yeah, 80% of the people prepare it from it, so it's very common.
Okay, so special. That's
Cool.
okay. So I guess there are no more questions. Like, does anyone has a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Like, if
Yeah.
someone wants to go into the field of investment banking, so how much does CFA help in that manner?
No, there for I would say investment banking, and also it relates with the so there are right. It definitely adds a lot of value, right? Lot of value for that particular purpose. And along with that, I would say it's again very simple supply demand thing, right? Because so many good candidates are applying for very few positions, it gets a bit more competitive. So you need to also have. So for me, my just for the background, my CV was like 8.5. I never wanted to be great amount, right? I was not looking for it, but I had learned very early during the college, like the first year itself, that people do look at this kind of a stuff. So I decided to just maintain something like just even it's 8, 8.5, 7.5, whatever you think. Just don't think that it's not going to be useful. Just do it just for the sake of it, even if you don't like the your field, which was the case in my example. But yeah, CFA is definitely. So along with that, you can do a lot of other things, right? And CFA will help you in that, providing just the basic background of the industry. And again, look at more as a downside. I think the main thing is the fees. So just think about it. If you can afford it now, then in terms of the future, it's very cheap.
Okay, so I hope your question is answered. We have Sparsh Agarwal. She wants to ask.
Yeah. So, sir, I'm highly interested in stock market, and I have been investing in like for 2 3 years. But I through CFA I want to do more of a stock market or asset management things. So, does CFA help me in that also?
Yeah. So see, if you want to purely go into the stock market, and even after doing the CFA, I have not invested anything in stocks yet, right? Because my day job takes up a lot of time, and which is into the real estate. But just to provide, from my understanding of what these people do, is generally they have a lot of idea about the market and more just a feel of market, I would say, rather than just the conceptual. Because whenever people talk about the valuation, they would have some theoretical projections. Okay, next year revenue is going to grow by 10%, in subsequent year it's going to grow by 7%, then it will keep growing by 5%. Where are this number coming from? It's never going to follow it, right? And so a lot of stock market people, they don't necessarily know this technical past. Some idea is fine, but they don't have to know the details of it. But if you do know it, then it definitely helps you a lot, right? So just to see at least from the fundamental point how far it is. And again, I would ask a very simple question: what's the downside? It's not going to be negative, right? You'll get to learn something and decide, yeah. For me, it's best that I want to do stock market only. Forget options, forget other things. So it will forget fixed income, right? Forget real estate. So it will may also help you to just be more confident about your field. So that can be also benefit. You wouldn't know until you try.
Okay, so there's one more question in the chat regarding the fees. Like just for clarification, is the level 1 fees around like $450?
Plus 400, I think, one time registration fee. So it ends up becoming like $800, $900 for the first time. For the second, third level, it would be that 450 only.
Okay. Okay, so I guess there are no more questions. Like, does anyone has any question? Please ask or we'll. Right. So I guess there's no question. So I'll pass on to Sayuj. Please take over.
Yes, I would like to thank Mr. Aakash for taking out time from his hectic schedule and lighting the way for many CFA aspirants. I am sure that they have gained a lot of insights from this session, and just thank you, Aakash, for gracing us with your presence.
Sure. Always my pleasure, guys. It's good to be speaking here. And yeah, if any of you have like any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, I may take a bit longer to respond, but yeah, I will definitely try to come back. Cool. Bye bye, guys. Take care.
There is one more question in the chat. What is the name of the book? The attendee couldn't hear the name clearly.
So sure. I think Google it, dude. Ask some of your friends who are already giving it. It's Swisher CFA. Search for it. Yeah.
Okay, that answers the question. Yes.
Very important one. I think he is definitely focused. He or she is definitely focused on giving the CFA now.
Right.
Yeah.
And someone is also asking about the video courses that you have preferred. So any guidance on that?
I don't have those now. I found on, as I mentioned, at DC++, and actually when I was going through them, there were 2013, correct, 2013 or some earlier version. I assume there's a lot of changes in the curriculum. Conceptually the same thing, but tweaks here and there. So better to just search for the torrent. I'm not sure, torrent, DC++, something like that. I don't think there's any need to like pay for those classes. If someone is asking that, then no need to like pay for the video classes. It's quite expensive and not worth it at all.
Okay, so that answers the question. I hope all the attendees have learned something from this talk and hopefully have new motivation to continue or pursue CFA. And yes, I think there are no more questions. So we can end the talk here. Thank you so much, Aakash.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.